There were times when buying happiness from life was a little more easier. You didn't have to pay much, and in return, you'd get wholesome joy that you could devour and also pocket some for your gloomy hours later. The sources that sold happiness never seemed to run out of it. And even when you thought you weren't capable of paying for them, they always had a wee amount of it packed away for you so you don't get used to a life without it. There were times when you knew things were enough. The home where you lived seemed like a palace which had multiple places to hide when you played hide and seek. The rusted tin soldier in the cupboard were enough to wage a war against loneliness and drive them out of your territory. The plain chapattis that Ma made tasted a lot more wholesome, and the lonely swingset in the backyard was enough to swing sadness away. Back then, enough was not just a word with a designated meaning in the dictionary. It was a state of mind. There were times when sleep was more welcoming and not just a means of escape, when dreams meant flying with the birds and sliding down the rainbows, and nightmares were just replaying the horror movies you had watched on TV. Back then, sleep was a little more loyal and needed no beckoning to come and embrace you. You could count the numbers and you'd fall asleep before you could even finish counting to 20. There were times when mistakes were synonymous to the red marks on your answer scripts in school, the agony of which went away as soon as another teacher applauded you for your singing skills or painting. The red marks weren't symbolic of anything but the ease with which you lived and the acceptance of the fact that if you write something, there will be a mistake or two. The acceptance which went hazy after a certain period of time and left you in a conflicting ground where you still fight for it. There were times when fairy tales weren't mere stories, but folk tales passed on orally generation after generation. They needed no validation for authenticity, for you knew they were true as long as you believed in them. There were times when Ma's ill-fitted sandals on your tiny feet looked as good as Cinderella's glass slippers, and a simple dive in a pond was enough to bring out the Ariel in you. You lived in a mundane world of your own and made a fairy tale out of it. You thrived for magic in the daily affairs and fashioned a Hogwarts for yourself. There were times when the grass was greener and the skies ever so purple, when apples could be pink and watermelons could grow on coconut trees, when an empty page was enough to hold your fantasies in colors, and empty rooms meant building imaginary empires which you ruled. There was a time when childhood wasn't just a memory, but a way of life, and you were you.